Let's look at our next fear. They're afraid to say yes to your offering because they're afraid of the unknown. They've never heard of the product. They don't know what it's all about. This is why, for I would say 90% of you that are in sales, your whole process must be an education process where you are educating them as to the benefits they'll derive from owning your product. Yes, you are doing a sales presentation, but that's one reason why, and I'll share this with you, oftentimes we test students after they graduate from our training, and we follow them in their careers. And the people that seem to do the best in sales come from either the nursing background or flight attendants. Now, I know that sounds hard to believe, but we've followed these people, and the reason is, I feel, is a nurse is a teacher. A flight attendant has to put up with some people that sometimes are very nasty. They'd have to learn how to handle the people in pain. And that's really what you do in the sales process. You're having people who might feel a pain that you can solve with your product or service, and you've got to educate them and lead them in to feelings of ownership. Your next fear is because of a bad past experience. See, they had a bad past experience. They said yes to something, and gosh, I wish they had never seen it. And right away, you sound like that last person. And they go, we had that happen once before. Now, you'll also find another truth. You that work with people over 50, as they look into their golden years, they are reluctant to take risks like they did when they were younger. So you really have to make them secure with your presentation to where they feel, boy, this is really going to be good for me. And that's why, again, they'll have bad past experience memories if you don't handle them properly in your presentation. Now, number 8 is important. Their fears can be based on prejudice, meaning someone prejudiced them. I had this happen in my career. It was the only time it ever happened once in all the years I was in business and sales. I had a couple who was definitely qualified, but after 2 years of working with them, I could never close a transaction, and the reason was they had been prejudiced. Now, prejudiced by number 9. Their fears were based on a third party. Their parents said they shouldn't do it, their grandparents said they shouldn't do it, and so they'd been prejudiced by a third party, and because of that, that fear of making the mistake, the fear of all the things we've talked about, overwhelmed them, and they could not go ahead. Now, your last fear is an interesting fear. It's a fear because of the words you say. Now, when I first started with you, I mentioned comparing selling to an art form and the great masters using oil and canvas, and we use words with people. And every word you say has one of 2 effects on people. Either it's a positive effect or it's a negative effect. And I'm going to really ask all of you that are participating to not use these 8 words, because I totally believe a person can be this close to saying yes or this close to saying no. And all of a sudden they hear one of these words and the fear overwhelms them. Now, the first word you don't want to ever say to them when you're telling them how much the product or service is the words cost or price. See, because as soon as you say the cost is, the price is, their first reaction is, it's too much, or we should shop around for a lower price. Now, that's what cost or price triggers. John, the price of this vehicle is $28,500. Right away, they go, that's a little higher than I thought. Maybe we should go up the street to another dealership. Or many people today are overwhelmed by the appreciation of what things have gone up to, and so you give them a price and it knocks them out. So I'm really going to ask you, when you tell people how much your product or service is, don't use cost or price. Share with them the total investment or the total amount. Now, the next word is a real fear producer. And I know many of you maybe, when you're asking them to invest, say, well, now let me just go over the down payment. Now, as soon as they hear down payment, the first thing they think is, gosh, I didn't want to come up with the money right now. Because see, down payment means write the check. And they go, we're not doing that. We're only looking today. We're shopping. We're not buying today. So I'd love you, instead of down payment, to say the initial investment or the initial amount. Those do not create the fear that down payment creates. Now, your third word you don't want to say, because everybody in the country has too many of these, and that's the words monthly payment. See, when you say monthly payment, it takes them back to that little table that they sit at once a month, and they write a check, and they hope they have enough money to pay all the bills. So I'd love you to not tell them the monthly payment. Instead, use the monthly investment or the monthly amount. Monthly investment or monthly amount. And of course, your next word. Boy, you talk about a scary word. Don't call it a contract. See, when you say, let's go over the contract, they remember mom and dad saying, don't you get near a contract. In fact, if you get near a contract, you better read the small print, and if you don't understand it, make sure you get an attorney involved. So all of that is built in when you say, let's go over the contract. So instead of calling any printed form that you fill out and they put their signature on, don't call it a contract. Call it either the paperwork or the agreement or the form. See, it's a whole different feeling. The next word you don't want to say is a small word, but it's very fearful. Don't say the word buy. See, when you say, when you buy this, that's what they didn't want to do. They're there to look. So every time you go buy, when you buy, you're going to love buying here, buying there, buy this. They go, we're not doing that today. And many of them you're going to meet have made a pact before they meet you, where that husband said to that wife, Mary, you keep your mouth shut. We're not buying anything. We own too many things. You can't say no. I'm not sure what this whole thing's about. So right away, every moment you say buy, they put up the defenses. So drop by. And from the moment you meet them, use the word own. See, it's amazing. People love to own things. They're just afraid to buy them. And again, it's a whole different feeling. It's amazing. Instead of saying, you know, when you buy in this neighborhood versus when you own the pride of ownership that people do that live here. And it's a whole different feeling. And we are, again, helping people emotionally say yes. Then the next two words, they're the same in essence, but the next two words are very scary words. They are sell or sold. See, when you say to someone, when I sell you this, right away they go, you're not doing that. We decided we're not buying, and you're not selling it. Or some people go, you know, we sold your friends. And they go, yeah, you pushed them into it. You're not doing that to me. So try to drop from your entire vocabulary the words sell or sold. You use the terms get them involved. Get them involved. Or help them acquire. We've helped so many companies acquire this business machine. We get so many families involved in this area. It's amazing. They'll let you get them involved. They'll let you help them acquire it. They just don't want you to sell them. And again, it's a whole different feeling, all right? The next word's a word I really dislike. And when I hear it, I want to grab the person and say, you know, if I were your client and you said that word to me, I would be on my way out because I don't want to get involved in one of those. And the next word you don't want to say is the word deal. See, so many people have gotten into a bad deal that they were told was a good deal. So you, of course, say, this is a good deal, and they go back to the past and go, we had one of those. No, thank you very much. We're not getting involved in another deal. Especially people over 50. They hear the word deal and they go back 10 years ago when they lost all they had in savings because someone said it was a good deal and it wasn't. So instead of the word deal, whenever you're talking about how great this opportunity is, you use that word. Either opportunity or transaction. John, I think you're going to agree this is an excellent opportunity for you. I think it's a transaction you're really going to be happy about. Now, in business-to-business sales, this is wonderful. Because oftentimes your decision maker is not the president or the CEO of a company, and when they hear the word deal, they get skeptical. But when you say to them, this will be a transaction that all of your company will be thrilled with, it doesn't create that fear of a bad deal. Now, you're doing everything right, and you're moving right along. You've filled out your paperwork. You've done everything, and it's now time for you to go for the signature. And you ask them to sign it. Don't ask people to sign anything. What if mom and dad said, don't you sign anything? And that one word sign, where they were heading towards a yes, can push them into no. So instead of sign, we ask them to okay it. John, I'll just need your okay here. Or you can ask them to approve it. John, I'll just need you to approve it. Or you can ask them to authorize it. Just need you to authorize my paperwork as you would a check. Or you ask them to endorse it. It's amazing. They'll okay it, they'll approve it, they'll authorize it, they'll endorse it, but they won't sign it. And I mean it. I've watched it. I had one company do tests on this. They decided after they invested in some more training, they said, hey, let's test this. And it was amazing how many people, when they were asked to sign it, said, we're going to think it over. We'll get back to you. Amazing. And I really want you to work on this. I mean, practice it. John, I'll just need you to okay my paperwork right here, and we'll set up delivery next week. Some of them won't know what you mean. They won't know what you mean. Watch. I'm going to have you be the buyer. All of you are the buyer now. Ready? And I want you to say, when I ask you to go ahead, I want you to say, oh, you mean sign it. Ready? So, John, Mary, I'll just need your approval right here, and we'll set up delivery for next week. When they say, oh, you mean sign it, all I want you to do is give them a nice smile, nod your head, and say one word, fine. And now they know what their job is. Try it, gang, it works. John, Mary, I'll just need your authorization right here. Oh, you mean you want us to sign it? Fine. And nod with a smile, and they know what they're supposed to do, and they will take that pen and put their approval on it if you'll do it just like that. Now let me go into what I consider the thing that makes our organization different than most, because we really work on one subject. And it is the biggest art form of the art form of selling. And it's called the art of closing a sale. And it is the one area that people have the most challenge with. They can prospect, they can make calls, they can usually do a decent presentation, but where they fall down is moving from giving information, sharing all the presentation, and then moving into the final closing of a sale. And this is an art form. Now, I will say this to you. If I were to walk on this stage, 5 of the highest paid people in the United States in sales, had them sit at a table or desk and do their presentations, you would see differences in the way they came across. But the same would be true of all of them. They would all end up getting the check because they have developed what they call their own closing style. And that's what you need to develop. Now, you can copy someone else and then take that and make it yours. Now, let me give you the definition of closing, because many people don't know it. It's professionally using a person's desire to own the benefits of your product, then blending your sincere desire to serve in helping a person make a decision that's truly good for them. See that? I made that in bold print, good for them. That's when you do the job right. Now, What really happens when you close a sale? Do you know you are really doing 4 things? Number 1, you help clients rationalize the decision they want to make. That's what you're doing. You're helping them rationalize it. The second thing you're doing, number 2, is you help clients head off procrastination. See, they are procrastinators, but with your great presentation, you head that off. Number 3, you help clients deal with their fear. Based on what I've taught you so far today, we don't produce fear with the words we say. Number 4, you help clients overcome indecision. Overcome indecision. Now, those are the 4 things you do when you're great at that table presenting and closing a sale. The final closing, this is the final closing, begins one of 3 ways. The first way it begins, now I'm talking, they know everything they need to say yes, and now I'm going to the final closing. The first way it starts is the buyer asks you a porcupine question, the answer to which you then write on the paperwork by saying, let me make a note of that. In other words, they go, Tom, will you train us to use the copier? You don't say yes. You smile and say, is training something you'd like? When he says yes, you then move right onto the form, well, let me make a note of that. Training required, and I am closing the transaction. That's such a beautiful way to start. The second way it starts, number 2, you ask them what we call a final closing question, and it's a minor close. It's called the test close. So you ask them a test closing question. Gosh, I'd love you that are in sales to just turn to the buyer and just say this sentence. John, how are you feeling about all this so far? I didn't ask him to buy. I said, how do you feel? And when they say they feel good, that's when you know it's time to move right onto your paperwork by just saying, let me make a note of that. The next way it begins, see, there's 3 ways. The third way it begins is you just ask them a reflex question and move on to your paperwork. Now, there's more than this, but the most popular reflex questions. Number 1 is the date. Gang, you're well off if you don't know the date. Just smile and say, you know, John, I've been running at such a pace. Do you know the date? He gives it to you. Just thank him and put it on your form. And you're closing. Number 2, the correct spelling of the name. Don't do this with a Jones or Smith, but if it's Mr. Stenskowski, smile and say, Mr. Stenskowski, can you help me with that spelling? Well, I sure can. He spells it. You fill it out on the form. The third way, which was my favorite, was you ask the middle initial. Mary, did you have a middle initial? She says B. You say, let me make a note of that, and you on the paperwork. And you're going to have such fun when you make this happen. Now, here's another very, very critical point. When you finish filling out any form, you pick it up, you scan it for correctness, and deliver your final closing sentence. And you want to write your own. Let me give you an example. Here's what we call just a generic one. John, with your approval right here, we'll set up delivery for next week. And there you've asked him to put his signature on it. Now here is the most critical instruction I'll ever give you, and I learned this many years ago. Whenever you ask the final closing question, and you that are taking notes, you can score this big. When you ask that final closing question, you must shut up. See, if you talk, you'll end up owning it. Let them have it. Now, this takes a little work because it's nerve-wracking. But when you smile and say, John, I'll need your approval right here, and you shut up, all he can do is either give you the reason he's not going ahead or put his approval on the paperwork. I'd like to have you join a very elite group, and those are the people that know how to handle the words, I want to think it over. Now, all of you in sales are going to hear, I want to think it over. And I'd love you to learn what to say, because this is the most important thing you're going to do in all your career is when they say they want to think it over. You want to smile and be real nice and just learn these words. You say, oh, that's fine, Mary. Obviously, you wouldn't take your time thinking this thing over unless you were seriously interested, would you? I mean, I'm sure you're not telling me that to get rid of me, so may I assume that you'll give it very careful consideration. She will agree. Then you simply say, just to clarify my thinking, what phase of this opportunity is it you'd like to think over? Is it the quality of the service I'll render? Is it the color? Is it something I've forgotten to cover? She says no to all of that, and then you simply say, seriously, level with me, could it be the money? Because 9 out of 10 times, it is the money. She will say the next thing. Tom, I think it just costs too much. Please, when anyone says it costs too much, just smile and say, you know, today most things do. Can you tell me about how much too much you feel it is? Now you get an amount of money. Then you move to the next strategy, which is called the reduction to the ridiculous, where you take an amount of money, find out how many years they're going to enjoy the product, get it to an annual amount, then go to a monthly, then to a weekly, then to a daily. See, a home that's only 25 cents a day too much is easy to accept rather than a home that's $3,000 more than they want to pay. And that reduction to the ridiculous is a fabulous technique, all right? The last thing I want to share with you is this. You got to learn to psych up every day in business. No athlete walks on the court of the field without getting some adrenaline pumping. So I'm going to ask you to learn how to psych up, and I'd love you to start tomorrow morning by saying this with enthusiasm 3 times in the morning. Today, I will win. Why? I'll tell you why. Because I got faith, courage, and enthusiasm. Let me hear you do that. Today, I will win. Why? I'll tell you why. Because I have faith, courage, and enthusiasm. You do that 3 times, that adrenaline gets pumping. Now tell your spouse what you're doing. You'll get out of that shower excited for the day. And you got to be excited today. I've so enjoyed presenting this and so hope you'll take the ideas, apply them tomorrow. Have a greater income. Be the person of your dreams. Thank you so much. Hey. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, that's very nice.
We hope you've enjoyed this special presentation.
Thank you.